talk about climate justice, or when I think about climate justice, for me it's something that's very big and overarching. It scales to the very hyper-local level, and issues like oil trains, which are putting people's safety and health on the line, and it scales to the global impacts of our continued dependence on fossil fuels, and really in an economy that is willing to put the profits for a multinational corporation before the health, safety, and future of our people.
As Matt said, my name is Marie. I teach physics and climatology at Bergen Community College, and I also conduct research regarding climate change with Rutgers University. I've been, studying and doing research and saying, okay, if we keep using these fuels, what's going to happen on the global scale? And I've always lived in Jersey City, and I never really thought about, okay, well, what kinds of things could happen here in Jersey City? And it's only been within the last few years where, thanks to Paula and the Coalition for Unsafe Oil Trains, like these things have really opened my eyes. So I'd like to talk a little bit about some global issues and as well as some local issues that we deal with. So just to begin, okay, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with this, but what are fossil fuels? Not a trick question. They're literally fossils. Okay, they're literally fossils. They're the remains of living things. So we're talking dinosaurs, ferns, things from millions of years ago. And what happens is they die. And when they die, they're on the ground, right? And over millions of years, more and more dirt and whatever else is piling on top of them. And as time goes on, they're now sinking down into the ground. And now that they're deep in the ground, heat and pressure will turn them into oil or coal or natural gas. This is the only equation you will see from me today, I promise you that. Okay, I promise. It's cool. So what we're doing is we're taking something that was alive, some sort of molecule that is made up of carbon and hydrogen, and we're reacting it with oxygen by burning it. And when that happens, the byproduct of this is CO2, which is carbon dioxide, and H2O, which is water vapor. And both of these things are greenhouse gases. Think about your car, okay? Your car in your summer. Especially if you have black seats in your car, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? On a hot summer day, you get in your car, you close the door, you sit down, and the first thought in your mind is, oh, it's so hot in here. So what the glass in your car, what that's doing is it's allowing sunlight to come in, but it's not allowing heat to come out. And a greenhouse gas, okay, so carbon dioxide, water vapor, methane, ozone, they behave the same way. Is what they do is they allow sunlight to come in. And so when the sun is shining, some of that sunlight gets reflected off the top of the atmosphere, but a lot of it makes it down to the ground. All right, just like how light can make it into your car. And then when the ground absorbs this light, what happens to it? What happens to the ground? It heats up. So now you have visible light coming in, and you have heat going out. Now most of that heat can make it back out into space. And some of that heat gets absorbed by the atmosphere and it stays behind. And that's not an entirely bad thing. Okay, having some sort of a greenhouse gas or greenhouse effect is a good thing, because otherwise our temperature on Earth, the average temperature would be like minus 10 degrees, and that would be no fun at all. But now what happens if we start to add more greenhouse gases over here? That prevents the heat from escaping. So what you have is now energy coming in, but it's not able to escape. So since you're gaining energy, you're increasing temperatures. And we've already seen this. Okay, there's evidence of this all over the world. All right, so this is the basic mechanism of the greenhouse effect. And this is the most major problem with our dependence on fossil fuels. So some global evidence that we actually, believe it or not, have a perfect record of CO2 levels going back 800,000 years. And how could we possibly know how much CO2 was in the atmosphere 800,000 years ago? And the answer is, it's a nifty little way that we can define this is you can go to Antarctica or you can go to the ice sheet in Greenland and you can take a giant core drill and drill into the ground. You can bring that ice core up. So there's the ice core over here. And this is what it looks like once you get it back to the lab. And I'm sure you've noticed this with the ice cubes in your refrigerator, but they're never perfectly clear, right? What do they have trapped in them? Air. Little tiny air bubbles. And the deeper you go into the ice, the older those air bubbles are. So those air bubbles are really a perfect representation of what the atmosphere was like however many years ago. And it turns out we can now dig down deep enough to get a record going from present day to 800,000 years.
Wow.
In the past, yep. And not only that, the air itself tells you about the CO2. The ice itself will tell you about the temperature at that time. Okay, because it turns out you can measure different oxygen isotopes and whatever, and that will tell you about the air temperature. And I really like this picture because here's this ice core, right? And you see this layer right here? That is from a volcanic eruption 20,000 years ago.
Wow.
Yep. This can tell you all sorts of things. However, for 650,000 years, the carbon dioxide net level has never been above this line right here. We know that. Okay, we have physical evidence of this. Now look what happens present day. This uptick right here happens, this increase at this point happens around 1790. What was going on in 1790?
Industrial Revolution.
The Industrial Revolution, very good. So this is, also further proof that humans really can affect the global climate, and it doesn't take much. Right now, I'm sure you guys have heard that 2015 is the longest, or the hottest year on record since we started keeping records in the 1800s. Some more statistics. 15 of the 16 warmest years have occurred since the year 2000. 2015 was not only the warmest year on record, but it broke the record the most. Okay, out of all the previous increases, this was the biggest increase. And 2015 was the 39th consecutive year for above average temperatures. Okay, so I'm looking around in this room, probably a lot of you in this room have never seen a year that was not above average as far as temperatures go. And this is data from, I think this is the MODIS satellite, okay, and as well as reconstruction with physical evidence. So this is the deviation from average. So the blues mean cooler than average, the reds mean warmer than average. Okay, so here we are in the 1970s, 1980s,
Whoa.
90s. And there we are. There we are right now. I'll go to the next. This is more enhanced so you can see it. But California, look at the issues that California is dealing with. Okay, with droughts, water is going to be a huge, huge issue. And that's where we were in 2012. 2013, they haven't updated this. 2013, there was a slight recovery. And in 2015, we're back down here. So we're actually off the chart at this point, this last winter. And over here, in the beginning, if you noticed, this group of islands over here in Canada, the Canadian archipelago, it was all ice. And now in the summer, it's open. And what you have now are people from shipping companies that are saying, hey, we can now take ships through here. Isn't that awesome? And I went to a talk maybe a few months ago where there was a guy consulting for these shipping companies, and they actually had routes planned out already. Like, they know that this is going to be open water, and people are just waiting for it. As far as ice goes, this is what we've observed. Okay, so this red line. So this is the amount of sea ice extent. And from the 1950s until 2012, it's over here. So it's gone down. What are all these lines over here? All of this mess going on. These are all of our climate models. So these are different computer programs that we can use to predict how much ice there's going to be. And what this is showing us is that our absolutely worst case scenario of all of the models that we have less ice than the worst that it's telling us. Okay, so there's something here that we're missing. Because you have melting ice and rising temperatures, which causes water to expand, we're also, especially in this area, we're going to have to deal with sea level rise. And if you were here in Jersey City during Hurricane Sandy, especially if you live downtown or in Country Village or Society Hill or Fort Liberté, you know all about that. This is the average sea level at Battery Park. From 1900 until today. So, and this is data, this is a tidal sensor, or a bunch of sensors that are there. You can just go online and download this data and plot it for yourself. It's publicly available. But getting back to fossil fuels, and thinking about this in terms of a local perspective, what I want to focus on is oil. We have natural gas pipelines, okay, we have the Spectra pipeline coming through Jersey City, unfortunately. At this point, it doesn't look like there's anything that we can do to stop it. And we could talk all day about that, but right now I'd like to talk about oil. And this is where the oil reserves are in the United States, from what we know of. In our region, really not too much. Over here, all right, this is where the majority of the oil that gets shipped through our area comes from. This is the Bakken region of North Dakota, and the bigger the green circle, the more oil there is at this location. So there is a ton of oil here to be extracted. This oil, because of the geology of the area, okay, has a lot of impurities. It can explode at much lower temperatures than quote-unquote regular crude oil. Okay, so we say that it's much more volatile. It is not something that we want shipped through where we live. And just to point out, over here in Alaska, ANWR, that stands for Arctic National Wildlife Reserve. So all over the Arctic, you basically have a ton of oil on the seafloor, and that's dedicated as a wildlife reserve, and that's going to be a constant battle to protect that, as an aside. So this is really the oil that we are here at home that we're dealing with. And if you ever see a train that looks like that coming through your neighborhood, chances are it is carrying oil that has originated from this region. Okay. And I picked this picture because you have spray paint
You said it's volatile.
Volatile, right? And so obviously any 15-year-old with a spray paint can come up to this. There's absolutely no security at all. And this is a map of going through Jersey City, but I want to focus on my area of Jersey City. So over here, this is my neighborhood, and we have oil rail lines coming through here. This meets up with another company, and then they all kind of go across the Hackensack River on this line.
Is it the blue lines? I'm sorry.
The blue lines, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's the name of your community?
The South Greenville Neighborhood Association. So this is on the very, very southern tip of the city. Over here, this is Catherine Court. This is filled with basically row houses, two-family row houses. This is incredibly densely populated. We have single-family homes over here on Merritt Street that are right across the street from the tracks. These are probably 50 feet away from the tracks. Over here we have a public housing complex, Curry Splits. Okay, so over here you have families that are struggling to begin with. You have kids that are being born that already have an uphill battle, and they're being born into that, and they are so incredibly close from this oil that has the potential to explode. And just really quick, this is the bridge that's across the street from the housing complex. This is on Google Street View, and it's funny. On Google, not really funny, but on Google Street View, if you go there, there's an oil train going across, like as the Google guide was taking pictures of it, and the oil train has spray paint on it. But there's another image of this bridge. Does this look like it's in good condition to you?
It is.
Hell no. Here's a close-up. This is real. This is real, I swear. This is all rust, and Paula and I went there. What was the date? Do you remember? Was it the 1920s? There's a little like stone that says like built in the 1920s. Has this been inspected since the 1920s?
Maybe not.
Not that we know of. Not that we know of. So, what I'm a part of is the South Greenville Neighborhood Association, and here's our contact information. We are basically, we work with areas that are south of Cater Avenue, for those of you that are familiar with Jersey City, but our meetings are open to everybody. If you would like to contact me or contact us, you can reach us at this email. Our meetings are the last Tuesday of every month, and we're open to everybody. You can come in, they start at 6:30, but if you show up late, that's fine too.
And then, I'll just tell you very quickly, Matt said that this back in crude oil from North Dakota is very dangerous. And I usually come with a soda, a Coca-Cola bottle. So imagine I'm holding a bottle of water, and I shake it. And I open the bottle of water, what happens? Nothing. Then I have the same thing, a bottle of Coca-Cola, and I shake it, and shake it, and shake it, and open it. What happens? A mess. But if that's ignited, if the train derails and that's ignited, then you have a bomb, literally a bomb. And I know you're from the police department, and I know the first responders, the fire, the police have been meeting to come up with a plan for evacuation. And in our area, you know what the plan is? Get hell out. Run. Excuse my language. Run. If you can. Because it's literally a bomb. And you can't put it out. The fire departments cannot put it out. They let it burn out. Our earliest focus was about the tanks themselves, the black tank cars, whether they have two sections or one section, and we quickly learned that that's not the issue. We learned from the expert there's no tank that's good enough to keep this stuff in if there's an impact. There's no train good enough. These are the trains that you have and that we have. These are DOT 111s. You'll see on the trains here. It's the same one. These are substandard. They were actually made for corn syrup originally. And now they're used, they've been, upgraded a little bit, and they're used for this back in crude oil. The better trains, our government just gave them more time to replace these old substandard trains with a newer substandard train. But they've given them at least 10 years to replace the old trains. In addition, we have, and some of us were talking about the diesel exhaust. The diesel exhaust from these trains, and they idle in our town. I know they idle in some parts of Jersey City. It's a carcinogen. The United Nations has called it cancer-causing carcinogenic. It causes asthma and all sorts of lung problems. So we're no longer focused on let's get better trains for this back in crude oil. Our focus is on don't transport this crude oil at all. It's too dangerous. There's no safe way to do it. And so people say to us, oh, why don't you have, the pipelines are much better, they're underground. No, because there's so many accidents with the pipelines. So some people say, well, in Albany, they should put it in barges down the Hudson River. Those are seriously dangerous too. So our movement, we decided, don't let anybody split us from, you want the pipeline, we don't want any back crude oil, and that's our main goal.
You said crude, yeah.
We had a demonstration, and the first demonstration was 6 people, then we had this in Teaneck, right over the trains. That day they were garbage trains. They were under the track. We were on a bridge. Then we found out that the trains, we were looking on the map, if you go to explosive crude by rail, with a hyphen in between each, you can get forest ethics map, and you can see exactly where these trains go, anywhere in the country, down to your block. So we found out that the trains go over our reservoir, which serves Bergen County and part of Hudson County. 800,000 people. And there's a little rinky-dink bridge, much smaller than your bridge. It's so disgusting, your disgusting bridge that you showed us. Ours is 26 feet. And how would we know if it's good? How would you know if it's good? The bridge. How did you know if your bridge is good? You inspected it. We looked at ours, but I don't know anything about bridges. You can't know about it because the federal regulations, this is interstate commerce. Federal regulations are, they don't have to tell you about their bridge inspections. They don't have to tell us. They don't, so we put up a big fight. We had a demonstration in March a year ago, and it was freezing. It was really, really cold. And we put up a really big stink, and we had food and water runs. We had about 30 environmental groups and community groups who were part of the demonstration. We got a lot of press coverage. We had another demonstration. We went right along the tracks. From everything in our town, you probably have it too. We have the ambulance corps next to the tracks, the fire station next to the tracks, the police station, do you have that here? Right next to the tracks, schools, a lot of schools right next to the tracks. So we had a march through the danger zone, and we had a rally at each of these locations. That was Loretta Weinberg, our state senator. He's a council member, but Loretta Weinberg is the person who's been introducing some good legislation that will make things hopefully a little bit more transparent in the state. Actually, the co-sponsor in the assembly, Assemblyman Gordon Johnson, sabotaged the legislation. Somebody from the Christie administration told him not to support it, and he dropped the legislation. So it's going to be reintroduced. He said he's sorry. This is the danger so much. We have our graffiti too, because it's the same train that goes through here. There's our march from all over the county. And we stopped under Route 4, one of our stops, because if the trains go under Route 4, under Route 80, under Route 95. These trains go under all of those major routes. We're in serious trouble. And every year we mark the tragic death of 47 people in Lamagantic when a train carrying Vacuum crude oil derailed, exploded, and 47 people were vaporized. There were 16 of them who were 16 children who were left orphans.
That's in Quebec.
In Quebec.
The entire town was decimated.
It's horrible, horrible, horrible. So every year there are demonstrations to keep that in our minds. We always, at all our events, we have petitions about legislation, sign-in sheets the way we have here, because we are a growing movement and we want to keep involving more and more people. There's our little bridge. We forced them. We forced them to tell us if it was okay. I spent a day off from school, it was sort of a holiday, and I called the Federal Rail Administration, and I called the district, I called Washington, I called the Sarah Feinberg, the acting head of the Federal Rail Administration. Talked to Senator Booker. We caused enough stink that we did find out the bridge wasn't in good shape. So then we demanded it get fixed. Oh, there's your bridge. Yeah, our bridge got fixed, your bridge should be fixed. That was last July, and there'll be another demonstration this coming July. All over the country, there were at least 100 the week of the tragedy in Laguna, Quebec. And you know, I want to show you this person because I really like Mary. We put something in the newspaper about the demonstration, and she helped organize, and she joined. And that, to me, that's, you know, it's easy to get environmentalists to go to things. It's good, you know, they're pretty available. But the best thing is if you can get people from neighborhoods that are impacted, or from your town, from your city. It's just marvelous. We had another demonstration. We called it triple threat of back and crude oil, the diesel exhaust that some of us had talked about earlier, and the problems with fossil fuels. And it rained so hard. It was a couple of months ago. This is a school. The tracks are right here, right next to them. This is a housing complex, you know, the one that burned down in Edgewater?
Yeah.
Well, the same company wants to build in Teaneck. Where? Right next to the tracks. And they build with this really lousy, lightweight wood, very poor safety record, very poor fire safety record. And so we had this massive fight in Teaneck to prevent them from getting rezoned. And some of the elected officials all loved us and complimented us. As my mother would make that kind of fake smile, they always, you're doing such a good job, yeah, you're doing such a good, and they voted to allow Avalon Bay. And so we're so angry with some of these elected officials who didn't vote in the interest of the people of our town, the safety of the people in our town. So we have an election in May, and some of them are going to be gone. And we'll put in some new, we have some people who are running who will, we think, really fight to protect us from putting a housing development, big complex, next to a train carrying volatile back in crude oil.